Learning Unplugged.
And welcome to another episode of Learning Unplugged. My name's Lucy and this is Jane, and today we're here to talk about SEND and kind of how that means in education and kind of role of parents. So hello, welcome.
Hello,
how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
So you're working at Sending You at the moment.
Yeah.
Can you talk kind of about what you're doing, how, say, where?
Yeah, sure. So SEND, Special Educational Needs and Disabilities, and the U is parents, carers, children and young people that we are there to provide information, advice and support for. All local authorities have a SENDIAS service. We work alongside, not affiliated with, we're impartial, and a charity that provides across Bristol, South Gloss and North Somerset.
Right.
So we have a helpline with experts that are qualified in SEND laws that parents, carers, children and young people can call into.
Right.
We have a website that's full of information and resources. We have practitioners that go out and do coffee mornings and workshops within community. So we really try and reach out and to try and provide that safe space to, it could be building better communication between them and the provision. It's kind of broad what we do. Yeah.
I guess SEND kind of, the needs are so broad as well, so you've kind of got to obviously cater for that. Exactly. And kind of how every child is different. So how do you kind of work through that? Do you run like workshops or? Yeah,
so our practitioners that go into the community, they will have an introduction. So it might be a coffee morning at a community centre in Bristol, and they'll have an introduction of what we're all about, and then may have a topic. So it could be EHCPs, which are educational healthcare plans.
Yeah.
A lot of people are unsure either how to apply for those, or if they're in place and a review is coming up, how to do that. And so we can cater for different needs, both for parents, carers, children and young people, but also for professionals. So it's sharing and tailoring the service, if you like, to what their needs may be. At the moment, we're focusing, have a lot of questions about transitions. So preparing to take options at school or preparing to transition from this year to go into college. And so we can do like a little workshop on it, refer people to our website and then provide one-to-one support.
Right, so how do you work with schools kind of directly?
Yeah.
Like how does that kind of educational more side of it kind of work?
So sometimes schools will reach out to us, they'll hear about our service. Sometimes parents will reach out and say, I'm not sure what's happening with school at the moment, and it might be that there's a language barrier or that a parent is new to the SEND provision. And so we'll then go in and have a meeting with school, and it's kind of trying to be the bridge to help that communication, because it can be difficult for both sides, families and the education place. So it's following and advising on what support is available and what should be, for example, through the SEND Code of Practice.
Yeah.
But also recognising that there's individual needs to look at.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely kind of obviously not just SEND kind of needs, but working in schools anyway, kind of every student has different learning capabilities,
absolutely,
different learning styles kind of thing. So I think that's really interesting that you're kind of obviously working alongside them and kind of providing that support and that kind of care for them. How do you kind of work with the parents then?
So I was going to say I don't, but sometimes I'll go to workshops and support our advisors who will meet with parents in the community, or we have a contact form on our website that they can call, I kind of send an email through and have a call back. My role is to support volunteers who are a big part of our service, but also to meet with children and young people. So when I go into a school, it's often to meet one-to-one to gather their views. That's something that's not always well known but is important, that young person has a voice and it should be central to their progression. And so I'll talk with them about difficulties that they're having, what support needs they have, but also championing their strengths, which can be missed at times. And so, yeah, there's that duality, and I'm more specifically there to help children and young people.
I really like what you said there about kind of the strengths aspects, because I feel like regardless kind of your needs in school, the thing that people kind of most focus on is the weaknesses. Oh, you've done that wrong, you need to work on that. That one's not as kind of up to standard. And so I feel that's definitely something that kind of schools can maybe like take your lead on, is kind of working on those strengths, saying, actually, you've done that one really well. How about we try and get this one as good as that one? Kind of building off those strengths, but everyone kind of needs the feedback to be able to improve. But working on that confidence as well that comes from recognising that you've done something good, I think is definitely really important.
Yes, and I really love that part of my job. I feel kind of lucky to be part of that and share that. And I think sometimes, so a young person with SEND needs might mask those needs in school, and it's a completely different environment, and then when they're home, let loose. And I'm sort of can be that intermediary, that's the word, so that we can have a chat purely about where they're at. And parents will often know their child best, but school will know a certain angle of how they're working. And so it's really nice to champion their voice and to give them that space to say, this is what I feel, these are my concerns, this is what would help.
Yeah, I think that's really good, kind of the way that you're working through that. So if, let's say, there's a child kind of in schools who teachers thought maybe they were recognising kind of some signs of having different needs that kind of need addressing, how would you kind of recognise them? How would you kind of bring that to attention of parents, for example?
So school, you're saying school is recognising it, maybe parents haven't?
Yeah.
Okay, then school would, ideally, school would chat with the parents and share that, and then parents could, if they wanted, to come to us to see what the steps would be. There's a graduated response. My colleagues are the experts on the terminology, but the children don't need to have an assessment or an assigned special need in order to get support. So it could be that school recognises it, parent may come to us to say, school have recognised this, what should I expect in terms of support? And it could be that those needs are assessed. It could be that a child needs, for example, to have some time out. If somebody finds it difficult to pay attention, which I think I would, throughout a whole class hour, then they could have 5-minute break or give out papers in class, something that can help break that what feels forced, and then be much better with that. So it's putting things in place and helping parents understand how needs can be met, and if an assessment is needed, what that process is and what it looks like in terms of having an educational healthcare plan.
Yeah, so in terms of kind of the application for diagnosing different needs and kind of getting those provisional care kind of packages, how does Sending You kind of follow up with that, kind of support parents and children with that? Because I imagine it's quite a stressful kind of period trying to kind of get those assessments and different things.
You're right. It is stressful in all sorts of ways, and often when I speak to parents, we want to acknowledge that we understand that there's the stress of wanting the best for your child and seeing that things are difficult, and then needing to turn to legislation and application forms and such. So on our website, we have a lot of information of what that application process looks like, but also they can call in and chat with us or arrange to attend a workshop and meet a practitioner. So there's lots of different ways, because we recognise too that parents and carers will have certain needs and what kind of support, and no diagnosis or the signs are different for everybody, because we're all different, and so it's no different for applying for SEND. So we encourage parents to reach out and contact us, and we can give a lot of information and signpost, and then if necessary break that down step by step.
Yeah.
So it's not something that surprises me when I speak to parents, is maybe they've contacted us, had a lot of information, had an email with lots of resources, and then thought a little overwhelmed on what to do. But we encourage them to come back and can say, let's break this down, and there's no restriction on the number of times that they're in touch with us.
Yeah.
So we can help them step by step and communicating with school.
I think that's really important, kind of not only the support for the child in question, but also for the parents, because if you think about all that kind of overwhelming amount of information that there is, and obviously you were saying all the different forms that you've got to fill out and all these different things that are available, I guess it can be quite overwhelming and kind of back yourself into a little bit of a corner, I guess.
Absolutely.
So kind of in your kind of role, or kind of sending you as a company, how do you like kind of personally contact those parents, support those parents kind of individually? To say whether it's self-referral, I think that so for example, if we run a community workshop, then we'll advertise that. We have a great marketing team that uses all the social media outlets to advertise the groups that we do. Often it's word of mouth, parents telling parents that we found this service really useful, and we work with a lot of different agencies and services that can provide support. So there's a group that called Memoration, and they support emotionally more than we can at times, and they meet like minds and like parents. So advertising, social media workshops, and then encouraging parents to share. Our volunteers also advocate for the service. Often they're parents that have used the service before, so we really value that. Yeah, definitely. I can imagine kind of the team that's behind it is, I guess, monumental.
Yes.
So kind of going back to kind of education a little bit, how do you think that kind of education as a whole, not kind of specific to sending you, but kind of as a whole in the kind of classroom, how do you think that can have a kind of positive impact on people with SEND?
So another part of my job is that we have, it's called Youth Matters, a group and a newsletter, and we encourage young people to join us in these termly meetings or feed into the newsletter so that their voice is heard. And I think, to answer your question, what they would say is to be listened to. And I think listening can be a very simple thing. You stop talking and you listen. But also, if you're a teacher and you have however many people in your class, and then a class after, and homework and stresses, then that can sometimes be difficult. But I think if recognising, a lot of young people that I work with will have at least a member of staff that they feel encouraged to talk to, and then communication between school to see, okay, if this person was able to have a pass from class to have a break from concentration, or a learning assistant to help them in English class, but they can fly in practical, then communication and listening to the child's voice is really important, I think.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think listening is the most kind of important skill, to be able to understand and have that kind of connection with that student, to understand their needs, understand what they need from that particular person, and from kind of the whole school kind of aspect as well. I think is definitely so important.
It's true.
And kind of, I mean, even with children who don't have SEND, that kind of listening, building that kind of teacher relationship that has mutual trust as well.
That's exactly, I was going to say that. Trust is really important, really important. And listening is a big part of that, to show that I'm not here to tell you what's here. I want to hear what you need, and then we'll look at what we can do about that.
Yeah, definitely. Having that kind of connection and communication is definitely so important. Perfect. Well, we're coming to the end of our podcast, so I just wanted to ask you for your final message, your top tip to kind of take away from this podcast.
Okay, well, I really thank you for the opportunity in sharing that, and I know from the young people that I work with how accessible podcasts are, and so it's really nice to share what Send You do and how accessible we are. And also to encourage children and young people to be in touch, and that our last group fed into the Send Review, and they can really have a voice in how Send services support them if they come forward, and we can hear that. So yeah, really, really keen to hear their point of view and to raise their voice.
Perfect. Well, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time on the next episode of Learning Unplugged. Goodbye.
Bye.
Learning Unplugged.